And 1, 2, 3. Okay, welcome to this week's part one installment of the British Electric Blues Show. It's my pleasure to have here on the channel Dave Simpson, all the way from the UK. So Dave will tell us exactly where he is in the UK for all you people in North America that watch the show. I've been a fan of Dave's channel for, I think we were talking off air, maybe 5 years, but certainly 4 years. So not a veteran to his channel, but been there for a long time. So I've seen a lot of Dave's videos, especially his Peter Green videos, and he'll talk a little bit more about that, and obviously his love for Peter Green, which is one of the reasons why we're here. Celebrating, the life of a genius, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
And so, Dave, welcome to the show. And
thank you very much.
If it's okay with you, if you'd like to sort of give our viewers, anyone that jumps into the chat or anyone that watches our show in the replays, bit of an introduction about you, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me, for starters. Thank you very much indeed. And so, yeah, definitely here to appreciate Mr. Peter Green, the one and only. My name's Dave Simpson. I've been doing YouTube now since 2013, and I've been playing music live. Well, I've been playing music for 18 years now. I started playing guitar when I was 16 years old, and it was a thing that kind of found me. Like I know, cool. I didn't actually actively search music out. I was going through a very, 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 very dark period of my life. Coming out of school, I had a really bad time at school with bullying, and just basically I was done. I thought that was my life. At 15 years old, I thought that was it. That's my lot. And then my sister was playing guitar, and I heard her playing guitar, and my dad was playing accordion. They were playing a Cajun song, and I was like, "What is that? That is amazing!" It was just the concept of two people playing music together in the same room. It was just like, that seems so cool. And she taught me the first things on guitar, and that was it. I was hooked immediately by the guitar and music, and it was just like, I've got to do this. This is me. This is where I belong. And I've never wanted to do anything since. It's like, this is what I am. I want to be a guitarist. I want to be a musician. So
yep.
I've dedicated my entire self to it. And
wow.
Yeah, there's no fallback plan. So, which I like not having a fallback plan, because it makes you go, right, if you do this, you've got to be serious. You can't be like, oh, I'll phone it in a bit. If you've got no fallback, then you are like, you take it all the way or you don't bother, kind of thing.
So can I just ask you a quick question? So I understand and fully support the fact that you are seeing music as the path for you. Do you make a distinction between what you do on YouTube, your presence on YouTube? Is that distinct from your music path, or do you see the two things complementary? Are they the same thing?
Yeah, they definitely complement each other. Like my YouTube channel gives me the ability to kind of pursue music, and music gives me the ability to pursue YouTube. So they're kind of like a hand-in-hand thing. One doesn't kind of go against the other. They both work really well with each other. So it's a really cool partnership, and I'm extremely grateful for it.
Well, yeah, like at the top of the show, or actually in the green room, I said to you that, when I started following you about 4 years ago, it was clear that you took your channel seriously. But what I really like about your channel, Dave, what I really like about what you do is you're not corporate. You're not corporate, no. And don't change, Dave. It's please don't, because right from your introduction to your channel, good evening, hello, good evening, good people of the church. That's just that's that's so you.
Yeah.
When I see that, I see someone that's a friend of mine just, saying, "G'day, mate, how's it going?"
Exactly. Yeah. But that's the idea. Is like I don't want it to be. I don't like the idea of it. There's a lot of YouTubers out there who put on a mask. They have a mask,
Oh, big time.
and yeah, the way they are on YouTube is not the way they are in life. And I
Sure.
thought I don't want that. If I always thought like if anybody if I ever got to a point where people kind of held me in some kind of regard of whatever of being whatever good guitarist, whatever this that, and the other, I want people to see who I am. So when
Yep.
if I meet these people or I do anything, I am what I am. That I don't
Yep.
have to kind of fake it. I am what I am. So I just thought, why would I try and be kind of like these hey, look at me, look at how amazing I am, and this I knew, and then off camera you're like, oh god, this is horrible. I wish I wasn't doing this. That doesn't make any sense to me. It was always like be totally honest with people who watch you because they deserve your honesty. They deserve you to be who you are, and they deserve utmost respect from you. And if you give respect out, I feel respect comes back. It's like a karma thing, if you will. So yeah, I don't like the idea of kind of like and the thing is, my channel is like it's me. I there's no one else. It's just me. It's always just kind of like been kind of for a while. I had my ex-partner Joe who was doing bits and pieces, helping me film or whatnot. But now it's just me. Me locked away in a room with guitars and playing music and trying to share my love and enthusiasm for it and trying to spread that and hopefully inspire and encourage people to pursue it as well.
Well, one of the things that I liked again about your channel when I first discovered you was the fact that in a way you were telling us as musicians, as music lovers, we have a responsibility as musicians, as guitar players, on social media, and that's something that our channel has tried to do. We come across trolls. You can jump on some people's videos and watch them, and someone puts a smart comment or a cheeky comment or a comment that doesn't need to be there. One of the things that we've tried to do, and with some of the followers of our channel, is that we take seriously our responsibility as musicians to say, well, look, in social media, say some positive things. It doesn't mean that you have to bullshit or be a liar, but if someone's taken the hard effort to produce a video or a lesson to play Rolling Stones' Sympathy for a Devil, and he's playing it or she's playing it her way, there's 50 ways to play that song. So why would you put the comment saying you're playing it wrong?
Yeah,
and I'm sure you would have come across those comments, Dave, with your lessons many times.
Yeah, so I mean, I get one all the time. I did a video years ago. I think it was like 2014. I did a video on how to play "All Right Now" by Free, and I taught how I've seen Paul Kossoff play it with it's double A note on the low E and A strings, make it really big because he's instrument at that point, and people are like saying, you're playing the wrong chord, it's this chord, and you're doing it wrong. And I was like, how can it be wrong if I've seen him doing it? I'm like, hang on a minute, that can't be right. It's like all you need to do now, because luckily I had at that time, years ago when I learned All Right Now, I'd bought a free live DVD. And I saw him playing it at the Isle of Wight and on the beat club sessions and stuff like that in the 70s. And I saw Paul Kossoff's hand and I saw what he was doing and I was like, oh, that's how you play that riff. And then I played it from there and and I was like, that sounds so much more right than anything else. And it is. People are saying, "Oh, you're playing the wrong chord." It's like I can't be playing the wrong chord because I'm doing what Paul Kossoff did. It's like it's like I'm playing what he played. You're technically saying like Paul Kossoff's wrong for playing the song that he had a part in writing. It's like,
well, I'm a Keith Richards nut. Okay, so and Keith Richards never played the same song the same way. You know, you know, it's well known that he's played Honky Tonk Woman 15 different ways, you know.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
Mm.
hey, before we continue with the show, can I just do a shout out to some of the people that are watching us, if that's okay,
Oh,
please, Dave? So in the chat we've got Great Vanzini, who's from he's a friend of ours who's been on the show. He's from Oregon. We have Deja Voodoo, who's from Australia. We've got Clive, who's from America, and my co-host Simon from the UK is with us. And we have on Facebook, we have Ishmael following us on the British Blues Network Facebook group, and he's making a comment here. Love Paul Kossoff. He's another vibrato king. So
Exactly.
yeah, interesting. So can I just ask you, when these people want to correct you or offer an opinion about, you know, and we have Guitar Hack from Canada as well. So thank you guys for joining us, and we're very lucky to have Dave Simpson take some time out and join us and talk about a few things. So how do you feel as a guitar player when you're producing these videos and you offer them there for guitar nuts all around the world to enjoy and to take and run away with, when somebody, you know, offers these comments? Is it like water off the duck's back? Is it something that you've learnt to deal with?
It is now, yeah. Initially, it was kind of like really, it was kind of hard to deal with. Initially, it was kind of like, it was like, you know, it kind of really hit me kind of hard. People were like taking a very kind of frontal attack, if you will, on certain things I was doing and saying, "Oh, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it this way, and you're doing it that way." And it's like, eventually, I just got to a point where I was like, I don't care what you've got to say anymore, because I can't care what you have to say anymore, because if I do, then I'll never do anything, because I'll get self-conscious and I'll eventually just kind of go, oh, okay, I better just not do it because I'm too afraid of what people might say. And I'm like, so I came to conclusion very early on. I just, you know, people can say what they want about how I'm playing something, if I'm playing something wrong or I'm playing something whatever, or not playing it the way they play it, or this, that, and the other. It's like, at the end of the day, like you say, that's fine. I mean, you know, Jimi Hendrix never played the same thing twice. You know, Peter Green would always change things, and you know, Rory Gallagher would change things, and you know, that's the beauty of music, is the fact that you can play the same song a million different ways in a million different forms, and it, you know, and that's so cool, and I like that. And I remember watching listening to an interview with funny enough, it was Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist Jake E. Lee, ex-guitarist Jake E. Lee, and he said he growing up in the 70s and learned to play in the 70s. What he would do is they would get together with friends, and they would all say to each other, like, you know, oh, I want to learn this song, and they would all go away and learn that song. And he said they'd reconvene every week in a room, and all five of them had learnt the same song in a totally different way. And I think that's wicked, because that shows individuality, and that shows how what one person perceives to be this way is not the way another person perceives to be, but both are valid, you know. And there's far too much of that on YouTube of like, you know, oh, you don't do it the way I do it, ergo you're wrong. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't really work that way, you know. And you know, because it's everything's valid. It's just the fact of it. You just have to choose what to. I don't know what you use the word believe, but you know, you've got to kind of follow your own road with it, really. So you know, if people don't believe I'm playing all right now, right, then that's fine. If they want to play it the way they play it, that's cool. If they think that sounds more right, then you know, go for it. I'm not going to be hurt by anybody kind of saying, "Oh, you're wrong" anymore. I just don't want that kind of thing. But you know, I'm not going to push it on anybody that, like, you know, well, that's the way Paul Kossoff played it. I'll mention it, but I'll say, well, this is the way Paul Kossoff did it. But if you want to do it that way, that's fine. You know,
I think you've hit the nail on the head. And personally, I don't mind the comment where someone might say, you know, Paul Kossoff played it this way at the Isle of Wight gig, but there's a video of him in Germany playing it this way. You know, because those kind of comments offer up a conversation, offer up, you know, opinions, you know, so that's not being correct. That's just someone saying, you know, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I did, you know, and you know, you probably as a YouTube creator have come across a lot of those positive comments where people have said, well, you know, it was done this way, or this happened. And that's one of the things that we like to do in our channel too. You know, we don't offer ourselves up to be experts. We're just guys hanging out, just talking about something that we love. So if we make anything wrong, if we say anything wrong, or if you disagree with something that we say, you know, say it in the chat, you know. But you know,
but always be respectful. Be respectful of other people.
So Peter Green, so you're responsible for a couple of things, actually. Your review of the vintage Les Paul guitar that you did, 3-4 years ago, was instrumental in me picking that guitar up. So I bought 2 versions of that guitar, the nice shiny reissue and the relic version. So what guitar have you got there?
This is the one that I've had forever. So the vintage one. This is the one that I did the video on the unboxing with, and it's just, this is one of those guitars that you just know you'll have for the rest of your life. As soon as I started playing it, I was like, this guitar will never leave me. And it's funny, it was my number 1 Les Paul for years, and then I got another one which kind of spoke a little bit more to me than this one, but I still have such a connection with this guitar, and I've done so many videos and so much with this, and again, being a Peter Green nut, you know, it's modeled on Peter Green's. I was like, it's got so much, again, even more so now. He's unfortunately no longer with us. It's just so much more meaning to it. Funnily enough, I mean, for the longest time, I had it reconfigured. So I had the pickup in the right way round, and I had a scratch plate on it. And the moment I found Peter had passed away, the scratch plate came off, and it's never going to go back on. And the pickup went back in reverse, backwards again, because you know, I can't have this guitar any other way anymore, because I want to show my respect to Peter and his playing, and this is the way his guitar looked, and this is the way this guitar is supposed to look. I did that for the scratch plate was on there for ease of playing, but out of respect, now it will remain in the way it came with the with the reverse humbucker and no scratch plate.
I'll just present you, so you might want to just hold your guitar up and show the cats in the chat, because that's what we're all about.
Yeah, there we go. So bit dark, but it's got a very, very nice flame on it.
Beautiful.
And then you got the reverse humbucker, and where are we going, Dave? Yeah. And I was like, I've got the matched knobs on there as well, because for some reason, I don't know why Vintage did that, but Vintage put on the mismatched knobs, and I'm like, that's where Gary had hit. That's where Gary had it when he had it. It's not where Peter had it.
So I'm glad that you've shuffled the chat on to Peter Green. I'm glad you have, because you know, I could talk about Peter Green for hours. So while we're talking about that guitar, I've just read this latest issue of the Guitarist magazine. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but there's an interview in there with the current owner of Greeny. And I have to tell you, my opinion on Kirk Hammett and his ownership of Greeny has changed remarkably. It's wonderful to see him playing that guitar live, and it's not in a museum. Do you have any opinions on that? Because on some Facebook groups, there's a lot of people out there who just don't like the fact that he's got that guitar.
I know. My opinion, as soon as I saw that he had bought that guitar, I was like, yes, it's in the hands of the player.
Really?
And I was like, he's going to gig this. He's going to gig this guitar. And I remember the first time I saw him playing it live, he was doing Nothing Else Matters. And I like Kirk Hammett. I mean, I've loved Kirk Hammett for years. And I saw him doing Nothing Else Matters on it. And he did a little solo just in the kind of middle section, Nothing Else Matters, and he did this solo, and I was like, that's Peter Green's Les Paul. You can just hear it, and I was like,
Sure.
Even though it's like, it's Kirk Hammett, he's playing through, an Axe effects and all sorts of digital stuff for a crazy PA. That net pickup sound, it is that guitar. It's Peter Green's Les Paul. He's infused that guitar with a sound, because even when Gary had it, I mean, Gary used more gain than Peter did. Gary was a gain monster, but
Sure.
it's, if you watch him doing like the Messiah Will Come Again on it, there's those bits where you just like, that guitar is it's got Peter's DNA running all the way through it, and no matter what you do, it sounds like that. So I was really happy, and he's got so much respect for that instrument as well.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah. And he knows what it means.
Time.
Yeah, he knows what it means, and he doesn't take it for granted. And that's all we could ask for. It really is.
Well. If no one's familiar with Kurt Hammett, there's a couple of articles. There's The Guitarist, which is the UK publication, and Guitar World's got an interview and a couple of articles on Peter Green, especially related to the tribute that Mick Fleetwood organised a few months ago. But Kurt Hammett was just like us, Dave. He was a blues nut. He was listening to Fleetwood Mac, the proper version of Fleetwood Mac early on. He didn't come to him like, oh, I need to buy that guitar as an investment, and take it out there. One of the great things too, Dave, is that there's going to be some young cats out there who are going to see this guitar and hopefully discover British electric blues, and get the same thrill that we're all getting listening to this music.
Exactly.
I just want to do another shout out to a very good friend of mine watching on the Facebook channel. Her name is Tina. So if you could say g'day to Tina, she's an admin on the Peter Green Facebook group. I just want to tell you something before we continue talking about Peter Green. You got me into trouble.
I get that a lot.
I was a member of one of the big original Facebook groups of Peter Green, and anyway, I discovered your Peter Green lessons, and I thought, my gosh, this guy is brilliant. This guy's talking about these Greeny scales. He's talking about that D minor pentatonic chord that you play, and I'm going, wow. So I shared you on this Peter Green Facebook group, and I got kicked off because I was sharing. Yeah. I got banned from this group because I shared a YouTube channel of a guy who's clearly a Peter Green nut doing a guitar lesson. So I thought, this ain't right.
No.
And I got, what am I going to do? So I started my own group. So 2,700 members later,
nice.
We're a strong group, and obviously people have been expressing their sympathies over the last week or so since the passing of Peter Green. I reposted your lessons. So maybe you want to talk about your lessons, the issues that you had with your Peter Green, how you had to re-edit those videos, and one of the interesting things though that really interests me is that you're offering these lessons free for people like me and anyone else to learn, and there's an issue behind that. You want to talk to us about that in any order you want?
I mean, the Peter Green lessons came about just because I just felt like he was not overlooked, but overlooked, Peter. Like people like it's like people like Jimmy Page. I'm not going to dig at anybody. I'm just having to say, like, people like Jimmy Page or Eric Clapton, they'll get mentioned more than Peter Green. And to me, it's like, well, Peter was the best. In my opinion, he just was British blues. That's the sound he had, the way he could sing and emote, and it was just like, oh my god. so when I started getting into him and diving into him, I was just like, this is just so amazing how he plays. And I was like, he's not seen enough. And I was like, I need to do something about this. I felt like, I want to promote him more, and I want people to see his genius and realize how with a couple of notes, it's certain dynamics, or how he manipulated his Les Paul or whatever. Like, you could just get this just in, it just bring you to tears or lift you up or whatever. And I just started in going, well, he's very meat and potatoes when it comes down to playing guitar. He's a pentatonic guy like a lot of blues guys are then, but it's not about what he doesn't do. It's about what it means when he does.
Sure.
And with stuff like the Greeny scales and stuff like that, it's like, it's, you can get 4 notes in like one of those scales, and he would play those 4 notes with such conviction and such passion that it was just like, people need to know this. People need to know exactly what's going on and how it works. And it just got me started in there, basically. And I was just like, right, I've got to really pursue this. And I loved it. I mean, I still love sitting down and playing Peter's songs and learning new Peter songs and stuff like that. And it was just really, really just kind of, I just thought, for anybody who might be interested, I thought, why not? Really, I just thought, I'll put them out there for free. I didn't see the point of charging for them, because I was like, well, this is kind of like this. I had a friend who, when I used to work in a guitar shop, and I had a friend there called John, and he said any knowledge you keep to yourself is wasted knowledge, and I totally agree with that. So I always come from this thing of, if you know something and somebody else doesn't, and they ask you how to do it, you tell them. You don't go, well, it'd be £25 a month. It's like, I don't like that. It's like, these techniques that I sat down and learned, I would rather tell people how to do it and just go, this is how you do it, instead of kind of like dirtying it, really, in my opinion, with kind of like, well, you've got to pay a certain amount and I'll show you the first half, but to see the rest, you have to donate, which from a living perspective is not the best way, but I'm the worst marketing man in the world for myself. But I'd much prefer to have it that way. I feel that's got more in it than me just kind of going, oh, well, I could show you this, but you've got to subscribe and this, that, and the other. And I just don't like it. So I'd much rather just kind of go, here's how to do it. Here's how to play that song. Go and have fun with it, because that's more important. And again, dirtying things with money, I feel, just kind of cheapens stuff. I mean, Peter was no stranger to that as well. I mean, he hated the whole concept of kind of money and all that kind of thing. You can hear it in interviews where he wanted to donate all the money that they got and all that kind of thing. And I think that's important, and it was important to me to do these videos for free. But then, yeah, as the years have gone on, me doing them, YouTube copyright police came in more and more and more, to the point where they were like, you can't use audio from the song, so you can't show that, and you can't play Albatross anymore, you can't play Oh Well, you can't play Green Man Leashy or whatever. And it was just like, oh god. And then it stopped me basically from doing it. So I was like, well, it stopped me teaching songs and kind of like the ins and outs of songs altogether, really, because I can't put those videos up. If the last video I filmed teaching wise was a Jimi Hendrix Voodoo Child video, and it took me an entire morning. I think it took me about 4 hours to film, and then it took another hour to edit, and so it's 5 hours. And I uploaded it, and it was immediately blocked worldwide. And I was just like, that's done. And I was like, I can't do this anymore then, can I? I just can't upload videos where I teach songs. And the same happened with Chili Peppers, John Frusciante stuff, and Peter as well. I was going to teach some other songs. I was going to do Closing My Eyes and World in Harmony and stuff like that, and Rattlesnake Shake. And I just thought, I can't do it, because if I get copyright strikes and keep getting copyright strikes, they'll just take my channel away. And so I had to make the annoying and horrible decision to go, right, well, I'm going to have to step away from doing the teaching thing and think about it in other ways. And but it's really hard, because you learn to play better through songs. Like I can teach how to play like Peter through songs better than I can just going, oh, there's a couple of techniques, because techniques are like learning the alphabet. You know how to go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but you don't know how to spell words, and that's the point. You need to be able to then learn how to spell cat and dog, and you start off small and then you working big, and learning these pentatonic scales is all well and good, and learning the notes that Peter would use is all well and good, but to learn them in a practical, to then take them and put them into a practical sense, like in a backing track or a song, then that's when you really go, that's what that feels like, and that's what that means, and then also you can start to develop your own feel and personality as well as kind of carrying the legacy of people like Peter with you, and having that influence there on the show. You can also kind of have your own kind of thing on it, which is a nice little slant as well. But I say with the YouTube police being as well, it's not YouTube actually. I shouldn't be blaming YouTube. It's not YouTube's fault. It's the labels, and unfortunately some artists who are blockers, and YouTube has to obey. They're under law. If YouTube don't obey this, it's by law. It's they're in trouble. So they have to clamp down on this kind of thing, sadly. But I'm pretty sure they would like not to, because they got a lot of flack for it, and they shouldn't really. It's not really fair. So, although I call them YouTube police, it's not really YouTube. It's the labels and them going, well, you're putting out these videos of our music, and well, we should be compensated for that, don't you think? And I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. But the fact of the matter is, to block it totally, so no one can ever see it and no one can ever listen to your music, is totally stupid. Because
yeah. I fully agree with you. And there's a couple of comments in the chat by some of the guys, like Deja Vu, talking about Rick Beato, how he went and testified at the Senate because he's going through the similar, the same experience as you, Dave. I have to take my hat off to you and say, well, look, if it wasn't for you giving me an idea on how to play the Greeny scale, I wouldn't sound like Peter Greeny. Now, I'm not saying that I do, but when I took that Greeny scale that you elaborated for us on your video and played it with some backing tracks, my gosh, those three notes, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, so it's sad that we're not getting the rest of the lessons that your creativity has, because you worked all that out yourself. Clearly you did. You listened to the albums, you listened to the songs, you went and applied that technique to the guitar and goes, wow, this is what it sounds like. So a lazy guitarist like me and everyone else is missing out on that. Hopefully YouTube and the record companies will get that sorted. When we were in the green room, guys, Dave and I were talking, and I said to Dave, I remember following Dave's channel back in the olden days when all you had to worry about were trolls on your channel. Now you've got record companies to worry about. And but what's really interesting though about that, Dave, is they sit and watch your whole channel, your whole video. So clearly, it's not algorithms that's the issue. It's actually 3 seconds. I want to continue talking about Peter Green, but you mentioned you had a video up where you were just playing an A chord, and you got blocked for that.
Yeah. It was an 11-second claim by AC/DC's record label, and 5 seconds was feedback, 5 seconds was an A chord, and 1 second was a riff that could have been any blues rock song from the last 40 years. And they were like, no, you can't do that. We own that. So I basically just removed that section of the video and just kind of carried on. But it's like, this is getting silly now. They're just greedy. It's just corporate greed. It's just like, hey, we've got a way in here. We can make money off these people, and we don't have to do anything about it. It's great. And it's like,
lazy.
Yeah, massively. Yeah. And it's like, it's just really scummy, in my opinion. It's just like, record labels have never been the nicest human beings in the world, but at least, as much as I can say it, at least back in the day they would give you a chance. Whereas these days, it's like, how how much money can you make us? Yeah.
Well, you're an elite company because they ripped off artists in the 60s and 70s, and so and they're ripping you off too. So you're in the getting ripped off category.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it seems to be like a musician's lot, and if you're not getting ripped off, you're not doing music right.
Yeah. That's good. It's good. See, at least we can smile about the fact that you're getting ripped off.
Indeed,
a musician would.
Yeah. Well, if you can't laugh about it, what's the point? Yeah, it's just a giggle. It is because it's funny. It's just like when my video got initially blocked for the A chord, I was absolutely furious. Like, ah.
But it comes across in your video.
Yeah,
that's one of the great things about your video. One minute you're really happy, bubbly, and then I find it really remarkable that you don't swear in your videos.
I know it's hard. There has been times where I'm like, oh, don't say that. I catch myself. So like, yeah, don't swear. You'll get destroyed by that would be the YouTube police coming in at that point because they're like, no profanity. Although it's like everywhere, all over YouTube is the F word and all sorts of profanities. But it's like I just feel like I don't want to do that. Like if I'm going to swear, I'll swear in off camera because it's not something if a kid's watching my video, like a 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid is watching my video and I'm kind of, oh, this is how to play the in blah, 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 whatever. It's been like, whoa, what are you doing? So it's keep it clean and accessible. And just I just don't see the point in it. It's like, it's like, there's so much of it out there. It's like, swearing because like, I can swear. It's like, yeah, but you look stupid. It doesn't look cool all the time if you're just constantly effing and blinding. It's like, stop it. There's kids watching.
So I think you've been a little bit modest with your Peter Green videos. I think they've been up on your channel for 4 years. Would it be 4 years, Dave? Yeah. Okay. So I would think that your video series on the Peter Green lessons would have been, responsible for a lot of players playing a lot of Fleetwood Mac stuff. I'm pretty sure that and I suppose one of the sad effects of someone passing is that that name is in the press, it's in the media, so a lot of people are going to be trying to find out a lot more information about Peter Green. Have you come across a resurgence or an increase in views on your Peter Green videos over the last week?
Funny enough, yeah. I mean, there's quite a bit more kind of interest in kind of like the Oh Well video and Albatross and the first ever video I did, the first ever How to Play Like Peter Green video. There's a lot more interest on that now, which is it's interesting. It's really cool, but at the same time, it's like I hope this isn't just kind of like if you are checking out Peter, I hope it's not just kind of like a passing fancy just because he's no longer with us, and it's like I'll check him out and then kind of move on from there because there's so much that Peter can teach guitarists and musicians, and even if you're not a guitarist, to be honest with you, I mean songwriting alone is insane. But there's so much he can teach you and so much you can learn from him. But I just hope people don't kind of just like treat it as like a flash in the pan thing. It kind of happened with Paul Kossoff in a way. There was a resurgence of Paul when Joe Bonamassa kind of spearheaded the Paul Kossoff signature Les Paul, and all of a sudden there was like 1 million Paul Kossoff fans, and it's like but that seems to have kind of tailed away now, and it's like he's kind of not gone back into obscurity or anything, but there was a huge spike in Paul's kind of reputation, and now he's kind of back to kind of where he was before that, and I don't feel it's fair, but at the same time, with the copyright laws being the way they are, and things being so transient in this day and age of like I want to know how to do this, why can't I do it in an hour kind of thing, kind of attitude. It's kind of like it's really, I don't know. I just don't want people like that to get forgotten, especially Peter, because he really gets a bit of he does get pushed aside in again, all respect due to people like Eric Clapton and whatnot, but he does get Peter will get pushed aside for Eric Clapton or Jimmy Page or Jeff Beck, and it's just like, yeah, but Peter was totally one of a kind. Jeff Beck is one of a kind, and Eric Clapton is, and Jimmy Page is one of a kind. But Peter was just something else, and he just had more of whatever that weird thing is, And I've always felt it. I mean, the first time I heard Peter, he was doing "Oh Well," and he just played "Oh Well." That was the first song I heard, and I was just like, "What is that?" And then I heard stuff like "Got a Good Mind to Give Up Living," which is just a masterpiece of blues guitar playing. It's there isn't any studying that piece of music, "Got a Good Mind to Give Up Living," especially the live version. That you could study that for a lifetime and not understand it all, but it will give you the groundwork to be a blues guitarist. No ifs, no buts. It's perfect, and it's a masterclass, and it's just a man pouring out everything he's got into that piece of music. You can just feel the heartache and the pain and the anguish and everything in that guitar solo. And the first note he hits from when he goes from the F to the G on the high E string, and it's just like, oh, it stabs you. You can immediately you're with him, and you understand how he feels, and it's just insanely good. And I just don't like the way he's not revered as much as he should be in a way. And again, I don't know if it's because he wasn't around for a long period of time. Like, obviously he came back and did the Splinter Group and stuff like that, but he was never the same. It was never really Peter at that point.
I think we have to resign to the fact that Peter Green will always be an underground guitarist. There should be a spike soon in Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac when the new biography gets released by Christopher Highjort, and hopefully he might put to rest some of the cloudy issues that fans and reporters have had over the last 20, 30 years. But I agree with you. We did a show last week on here, our tribute show to Peter Green, and one of the co-hosts that does the show with me, a good friend of mine, Carl, he would rate Peter Green as the giant in the British blues for himself. For me, it was always Clapton. But the last 4 or 5 years, I can't make that choice, Dave, because they're so different. They're so when we had Ramon Goose on our channel a couple of months ago, and he's another English blues guitarist, Peter Green nut, and he said something similar to what you just said, that he studied the Live at Boston album for years, and that's what made him a guitar player. And he said that he was living with some guys that were dealers in marijuana, so that's all he was doing was smoking marijuana and playing Peter Green. But he said that album is a masterpiece in blues guitar playing. So nice to see that you're echoing a lot of our sentiments, because you are an advanced Peter Green guitarist. So yeah, that's fantastic. So how old were you, and where were you when you consciously discovered Fleetwood Mac? Did you go through the process like all of us, the disco version of Fleetwood Mac and working backwards, or did you know the real Fleetwood Mac?
No, first? I thought it was like, Fleetwood Mac was Stevie Nicks, it was that kind of thing. Yeah, and I was like,
that's good. That's good to know that.
Yeah, I was like, people like, I do like Fleetwood Mac. I was like, no. I remember hearing Albatross years ago and going, oh, that's really cool, but I didn't think anything of it at the time.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, it was just one night on TV. It was like Guitar Heroes at the BBC program, and Peter Green came on, and they did "Oh Well," and it was about I don't know, a long time. Well, how long would it have been? 2008, 2009, yeah, 2007 maybe. I don't know. It was a long time ago. Like, it was quite a while back. 2008 would have been. And I remember like he just played "Oh Well," and I was just like, "Who is this?" And he said Fleetwood Mac, and I was like, "What?" And it kind of piqued my interest. So I was like, right, well, we're going to have to find all about this. So me and my brother kind of like dove into it basically, and we got kind of like we bought like the End of the Game album, and then Play On, and started listening to all bits and pieces, and it was like, okay, this I can get on with. You know, this is amazing. And then it's just kind of progressed from there really, and then kind of getting into more of his live stuff and hearing like, you know, like Worried Dream and I say got Mind to Give Up Living and stuff like that, and then hearing stuff like Green Man Alicia and stuff like that. It's just like, oh, you know, where do I need to bow down and how many times do I need to do it to prove that I appreciate you as what you are, kind of thing. It's incredible. So yeah, he's just magical to me. Peter is like, you know, I mean, I've always liked Eric Clapton's guitar playing and other people like Jeff Beck and people like that, but Peter has just got this magical thing, and he just shot right in there with people like Jimi Hendrix and John Frusciante for me. I was just like, you hit me in a way that not all guitarists can, and I really associated with him, like, you know, he's playing, and I really felt it deeply. And there were times, you know, so many times I've just kind of like sat there and just kind of listened to his playing, and you know, it's enough. It's not enough. It is enough to bring you to tears, and has done on many occasions. I mean, the first time I heard the song "Closing My Eyes," which is probably my favorite Peter song, was I was going through a breakup. Actually, I was going through a breakup, and I'd just been messed around by this other person. I was going through this weird time, and this song "Closing My Eyes" came along, and it really hit me hard. And it was just what I listened to it every day, all day. I didn't listen to any other song, and it just became a soundtrack to my kind of 2009 period of my life, and it was just really important to me, that song is. And funny enough, I find it really hard to listen to it now. I haven't listened to it for years because I find it really hard to hear now, because it just brings back so many emotions, and it digs in deep, and it's hard to listen to, but I'll always love it. And I think next to stuff like "I Got a Good Mind to Give Up the Living" and Green Man Alicia and Albatross, it is my favorite Peter song by far. It's got so much emotional resonance with me. But yeah, the man was an absolute monster in every way. He's just, yeah, the perfect blues guitarist to me, definitely. You know, and you know, it's one of those things of like when I heard he'd passed away, I sat in shock for a good half an hour, 45 minutes, and I just sat there like in just total shock, because I always held out hope that one day I would meet him, and I really wanted to meet him. I really wanted him to sign this guitar on the headstock, and I was like, you know, one day I hope that'll happen. I hope that'll happen. And then it kind of smacked me in the face full pelt that will never happen. Now that will, you know, much in the same way you'll never meet Jimi Hendrix, and you know, this, that, and the other. And I was a bit like, and it was a hard pill to swallow. And the first thing I did after I came out of a trance was, to say, reverted this guitar back to its Peter Green thing, and then I went upstairs and just did the YouTube tribute, because I just had to play, and I was just like, I've just got to play. I just can't be idle. You know, I'll just play, and we'll go from there, really. So yeah, that's if things gone crazy. Oop, what's going on here? There we go. But yeah,
well, Tina in the chat, she's made a comment. You're for Peter. It's beautiful, Dave, and she's thanking you for that. And you know, I have to say thanks for that too, because it came up on my news feed, and I watched it, and I felt it, and I listened to it. So those are the three things that, you know, as fans, you know, we that resonates within us. But I have to tell you something, Dave. I think that there's more, and I mean this respectfully. I mean this respectfully, but I think there's a lot of Peter Green in your playing. When you were going through a bit of, a bad experience recently with Joe, you were putting up, you were doing what a lot of guitar players and musicians do. You were falling back to music,
Yeah.
and some of the that tone that you've got, that space that you have between notes, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. If you decide to do a Peter Green tribute band, now I know that you like to do your original music and your own music, but if you wanted to do that as a touring option when you can tour, I'm sure there will be a audience for you. Is that something that you might consider, or is that something you've thought about?
It's something I really want to do. Yeah, I've wanted to do a Peter Green tribute show for years and years and years. It's just something I've really kind of like felt like almost compelled to do. Like I want to just get stand on a stage with an amp and this guitar and just play the songs that kind of that changed my kind of life, because Peter did change a lot of my life with his guitar playing, and changed a lot of my views on guitar playing and music in general, and this, that, and the other. And it would be great to do like a little a couple of shows with just kind of just playing his music and really just trying to give back to somebody who gave me so much, because I feel this way with all the guitarists that I kind of like hold in high regard as like heroes. I would love to kind of give back to people like Jimi Hendrix and John Frusciante and Peter Green and Rory Gallagher and stuff like that. I would love to be able to kind of do something to show my appreciation. And I feel that kind of if I could do a live show of Peter's material, then I would love to do it. And it's just having the ability to do it. Obviously, at this point in time, it's kind of like a bit of a no-go kind of thing, sadly. But it's finding a way to get around to doing it. But it's something I've always wanted to do. For quite a while, I did do a Jimi Hendrix tribute band,
Yes.
but unfortunately, it never really went anywhere, because the places we played, we played some rock clubs and this, that, and the other, but times have shifted. It's different now, and you can't kind of do that crazy pyrotechnic guitar playing that Jimi Hendrix did, and people don't get it. Unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say that, I'm not having a dig at anybody. It's just from my own personal experiences. When I would do kind of like long drawn out guitar solos to Voodoo Child or this, that, and the other, there was so much of the crowd who wouldn't understand, what are you doing? Why are you dive bombing the guitar, and why are you making all this noise and feedback? And it's like, why is your guitar? I remember this one guy came up to me and goes, "Your guitar, is there a problem with your guitar? Because it's feeding back way too much." And I was like, "It's supposed to. I'm playing Jimi Hendrix. He's the master of feedback. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to go crazy." He was really concerned, and he was like, "Oh," and this other guy was like, "Oh, your amp's hissing a lot." I was like, "Yeah, I've got a fuzz pedal. What do you want? It's going to be noisy. It was back then. It'd be a lot more noisy back in 1969 with 300-watt Marshall stacks. I can guarantee. That won't be a whisper quiet rig. I'm sure that was buzzing like nobody's business. But it's times have changed. But I do feel that there would be a market for like, and because I do feel there's a market for Peter Green kind of music. I do feel like it is definitely a possibility, and it's definitely something I would like to pursue at a later date. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and touch wood, and all that, because I would just love it. I'd love to be able to kind of like do kind of like the Greeny tribute thing, much in the same way what Gary Moore did when he did the Blues for Greeny gig. Like, that is. I would love to do a gig like that, but not a one-off, just to kind of like, to really just push it and just kind of do these gigs. And again, not put too much thought into it, doing like, do Albatross and stuff like that. And just kind of just try and incorporate that Peter spirit and the way of Peter did things, where everything was different. You know, not one solo was ever the same, and not one gig was the same as the other, and you know, just really kind of just go out my way to pay homage to him as best I could, really, and just try and channel him as best I could. It'd be wicked. I'd love to do it.
Well, I'd like to offer you some support in doing that, because I think there would be certainly a market for that music. When you consider what's happened over the last 6 months around the world, you know, music is a reflection of what's happening in the world. You know, it's a time where people probably should be more reflective. People are thinking a little bit more. So if you look at the guitar work and the music of Fleetwood Mac, sure, it's British blues. But you know, you dig a little bit deeper, there's something happening there with Peter Green's music, and you know, I think you would definitely have a venue and an audience for that kind of music. If you look at Cream, for example, you know, there's a few Cream tribute bands. There's a well-known Cream tribute band that has an audience, but yeah, I think you're the perfect guitarist. This could be a vehicle for you, Dave, to you know, to propel yourself, and I mean that sincerely, because you certainly have the touch. I suppose the difficulty for you is to try and find a drummer and a bass player, and you know, would you consider getting a second guitarist?
Oh, definitely,
you know, okay, so cool.
Yeah, I definitely need a second. I need a Danny Kerwin.
Sure. So would the Danny Kerwin also play the Jeremy Spencer slide stuff as well, or is that something you'd do?
I'd probably do that. I'd probably like to play the slide, because I do like that kind of Elmore Jamesy thing, and you know, but I'd love to do stuff like It This Way, where you've got like 2 guitar trade-off things, and also do some of Danny's songs. You know, it'd be great to do some of that stuff as well, and pay tribute to him as well in the set, really, and just, you know, just do it right. You know, pay tribute to all of them, and that period of time, and just do it kind of like I thought about this for a long time, of like doing it chronologically, like, you know, like you would structure the set like you would do like some songs from the first Fleetwood Mac album and the second, and then kind of go on from there up until basically when Peter left, after Then Play On. And then maybe as kind of like an outro encore thing, you do like an end of a game kind of jam, where you know, it's just a free form kind of bluesy kind of thing, or you do something like a Tutti Frutti and just go off on one at the end of it, like they did it, like the Boston thing. And yeah, so that'd be amazing. So yeah.
I look forward to hearing how that will work out, Dave. If you want to keep us in the loop with that, but I'm glad you mentioned Danny Kerwin, because you know, key ingredient. You know, he passed away. There's a question I like to ask blues guitarists, and because you're an Englishman, I need to ask you this question. And what is it about Brian Jones, Eric Clapton, Peter Green? What is it about these English guys in the late 60s? You know, they heard American black blues, you know, Chicago blues, the Delta blues, and they took it and they made it into something. Obviously, what is it about you British guys and guitar playing?
I have no idea. It's just there's that kind of the thing that I always liked about Peter Green and people like Brian Jones and Keith Richards and Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck, and you know, people like that, is they just showed the utmost respect for these blues guys like B.B. King and Buddy Guy and Son House and Robert Johnson. There was just so much respect there, and there was that desire to do it right, but do it their way.
Cool.
You know, it was you know, that I love that concept of kind of like, you know, I'm going to play Killing Floor, I'm going to play Smokestack Lightning or whatever song, like, you know, Crossroads, and I'm gonna do it while still paying homage to you, the original, the writer and person of the song, but I'm going to do it my own way, and in so doing, that will keep your memory alive. Like, you know, with Eric Clapton, with Robert Johnson, and Peter with BB King and stuff like that. It's all these. It's just that respect that they had for these blues artists, and it's just incredible. And I think it did become like that real, that late, the British blues boom thing. It was such a pivotal point in keeping blues music alive and really bringing it to the forefront. Because all of a sudden there's these like young kids playing 12-bar blues, and people are like, well, who's that? And it's like, well, if you like this, you want to go and check out BB King, or if you like this, you want to go and check out Robert Johnson or Son House. And people are like, oh, okay, I'll go and check them out. And all of a sudden you get people going down the line, and I like the way they spread that. Like, Eric Clapton was key in Robert Johnson. I'm positive he was key in Robert Johnson, bringing Robert Johnson back to the forefront. But I don't know what it is really about the way the Brits kind of approach the blues, but it's definitely kind of got a bit more kind of more distortion to it. If that's the right word to use, but it's got kind of a bit more kind of I don't know. It's funny. It's really strange because it's like British guys playing that music. It had something that's kind of I suppose it's undescribable. I can't describe it. It's undescribable in a way of it was what it was, and it always will be. You had so many amazing players back then, and it's such a sound as well. There's such a sound associated. It's like I adore the British blues guitar tone, like the Les Paul plugged into an amp, Marshall Fender Orange, wound up to the teeth, and just really barky and aggressive, but at the same time really soothing and warm, but can rip your face off at a moment's notice. And it's just, I don't know, there's just so much expression in it, and again, so much kind of I don't know. I just love it. It's really hard to describe exactly what it is and why, but
that's why I like to ask that question. I like to ask it, but because it's something worthwhile trying to answer. I think one of the key things for me that I like about British blues is that the British blues guys saved the blues. In America, blues was heading down the lounge path. It was being, that's where it was going. And then, Eric Clapton, the Stones came along, Jimmy Page, the Yardbirds, these British guys went to America and presented this music. And there's one YouTube clip that you're probably familiar with, and a lot of people in the chat, there's the Rolling Stones are being interviewed about what's happening in the band, and Brian Jones is there, and he says to the presenter, well, how about you just shut up and we just get Howling Wolf on, and you do some research and you realize that some of these American fans were watching and listening to Howling Wolf and Muddy Waters through these English bands, through through Clapton, through Free, all these giants that we love, So you've got a whole movement there of American kids going, wow, just look at this great music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it really did. It kind of was like, it's like Jimi Hendrix. He wouldn't have made it big if he didn't come over to the UK, because he wasn't getting anywhere in the US. And then Chas Chandler, Linda Keith saw him, and then Chas Chandler saw him. And it's a funny thing how the blues came over from America to Britain, and then the British took it back to America to show them what they had all along. It's so strange. It's such a weird paradox in a way. It's brilliant. Yeah.
I love it. I think it's fascinating. I'm glad that you mentioned, Jimi Hendrix, because that's a wonderful example. He was, a backing guitarist. Going probably end up in Las Vegas somewhere playing at a casino. Behind fly-in artists. But he had to go to the UK to break into to be part of that British UK blues scene that was happening in London. We talk about that a lot in our show. The London scene. We can't underestimate how much of a magnet London was.
Oh, definitely, yeah, indeed, yeah, totally. It was the place. It was the place to be. So many bands at that time were coming up, and they were all in London. You had I mean, it was the Mecca. It was the Mecca to go there. You had to be in London because that's where everyone was, and it's unreal. It cannot be understated how important that kind of movement was. And I love the fact that Jimi Hendrix as well. It's like when Chas Chandler went over to New York and saw him play, and he says, "I want to bring you over to the UK to record a single. Would you be interested?" And Jimmy said something along the lines of, "Do you know who Eric Clapton is?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I know Eric Clapton." He was like, "I'll come if you introduce me to Eric Clapton." That was like one of his kind of like stipulations when he was like, "I'll come to England if you introduce me to Eric Clapton," because Eric was his hero. Jimmy looked up to him no end, and they obviously were really good friends, and it's amazing really the camaraderie they all had for each other as well. Everyone was kind of like, everyone went to see each other. Like, you hear of like Jimi Hendrix was playing like at the Marquee Club, and in the crowd was like Pete Townsend, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, and the Beatles. And it's like wicked. That's wicked. It's so cool. And
but not only that, Dave Simpson would have been in that crowd too if Dave Simpson was there. Fans were there as well as other musicians. So it's an interesting time. I like the fact that you've mentioned Clapton and Jimi Hendrix because if you read a lot of articles or some articles by some uninformed journalists, they like to talk about this rivalry between Clapton and Hendrix. This. But it just does not ring true. They loved each other. They just, you just have a look at a couple of YouTube clips there where Clapton's half boozed and asking him, about what he thinks about Jimi Hendrix, and he's just about crying.
There's that incredible story, isn't there, where he talks about he was in New York or something, and he saw a left-handed Stratocaster. He'd never seen one before, and he thought, "I'm going to buy it for Jimmy." And he bought it back, and he went to a Sly and the Family Stone gig, and he saw Jimmy across the way, and he had the guitar with him, and he just didn't bump into him that night to give him the guitar, and they kind of waved at each other. That's about as far as it went, and that was the night he passed away. And when he found out, he was left with that left-handed Stratocaster, and that clip of him there is heartbreaking to see him, because that's Jimmy was his friend, and he lost his friend, and it gets on my nerves when people say, "Oh, well, they had this rivalry between them, like Clapton was God, and then Jimi Hendrix came along, and then Clapton hated him because he was better." It's like, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. It's like Eric Clapton loved him because of what he was and how he could play. He never once had any ill will towards Jimmy, and Jimmy never came over here to blow Clapton out the water. It was not that way. It drives me insane.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we do our show. It's our little bit of music archaeology, Dave. It's something that we want to give as fans to other fans. And let's be serious, Dave. When you and I are long gone and people are writing their PhD thesis on British blues, they're going to come across your channel and they're going to reference your channel, and our channel. This is what these guys in 2020 were saying about Peter Green. That's exactly the way it is. I like the fact that we can talk about myths and maybe shedding some true life on it. One of the pet things that I have is, the reporters over the years that have said, that Clapton and Bobby Whitlock and Dwayne Allman were smashed when they were recording Layla. That's it's complete. It's bullshit. They weren't.
Exactly. Of course they weren't. Yeah. it drives you insane, doesn't it? It's like all these kind of like, you know, fake truths, like, you know, oh, it must be true because I read it somewhere. It's like, no. It's like, you know, don't take everything just because like that guy said it doesn't mean it's true. It's like no one could play that well blasted out their head. It's impossible. Yeah, it is. It's like where people say like, you know, oh yeah, Jimi Hendrix was smashed out of his tree when he was in the studio and recording this, that, and the other. And I was like, I think you'll find Jimmy did drugs as a kind of almost kind of a precursor thing to it, so he'd actually perform these horrific schedules he was on. He had to be on drugs, otherwise he wouldn't be able to do it. But Jimmy in the studio, I mean, you know, straight edge as you could get. I mean, he probably had probably drank a little bit here and there, but Jimmy was so focused in the studio. I highly doubt for 1 second he was ever in there going, oh, I'm just drunk out my tree, let's do All in the Watchtower. You know, he was totally focused on what he was doing, and you can't do that if you're under the influence of anything. So yeah, it drives me insane. I don't like that. It's like, I must have been drugged up. It's like, no.
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think that's something that, you know, we should talk about, because, you know, these myths have been propagated for years. You know, I've got the 20th anniversary release of Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs, and there's a booklet in there, you know, and whoever wrote the booklet is talking about, you know, how they were in the studio and, you know, doing this and doing that, you know. Tom Dowd said no, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning they were in the studio, you know. They went and had a couple of beers and smoked a couple of joints, but that's not pinging up and, you know, in the studio and drinking bottles of whiskey. And, you know, it's just, how can you write that and do that and perform all that work smashed?
Exactly. Yeah, it's impossible. You're not when you're under the influence of things, like, you know, you can't be productive in that shape and form. You can't be. It's not. I don't think anybody in the world can be could be like a super drunk or drugged up or whatever person and going to go, oh, I'm 100% creative at this point in time. You're really not. And even if you think you are, what you're doing is probably atrociously horrible. And there's that story, isn't there, of Peter when they went to that party in Munich and he did that acid that did him in.
Yeah.
He was playing guitar and Jeremy Spencer was there, and they left, and Peter Green said, oh, what do you think to my playing? And Jeremy Spencer said, it was terrible. And Peter was like, oh, it wasn't. It was amazing. But I can imagine it probably wasn't, you know, just to play devil's advocate, because, I mean, God knows what that had done to him, you know, and God knows what he was actually playing. And it's such a weird situation for, you know, and I can imagine it wasn't that great. I can imagine he was just kind of like thinking it was brilliant when it was actually quite atrocious. And, you know, I say that with respect to him. I'm not trying to say, like, you know, anything negative towards him. I'm just trying to, you know, say it's like, you know, it isn't, you can't be creative in that mindset. I mean, I tried when before I gave up drinking and all that lot. I found it as a middleman, and it was kind of like, you know, it should be you and the guitar, and then you are one. Whereas if you put drink and drugs into the mix on a high level, it becomes you, drink and drugs, and then the guitar. It becomes this middleman, and creative people don't do that. You know, they're focused on what they do, and they, you know, when they're in the studio and when they're playing music, it's totally, that's all there is. You know, and I definitely don't like the idea of people going, oh, you've got to be out your head to play like Jimi Hendrix, or you've got to be this, that, and the other. And it's just like, oh, you've got to do drugs to understand it. It's like, what? I've been told that before. Like, people say, oh, you don't really understand Jimi Hendrix's music till you've listened to it on drugs. I'm like, never done that, and I think I've got a pretty good handle on it, if I'm being perfectly honest. not to blow my own trumpet, but it's like, you know, I think I get Jimi Hendrix's music, thanks very much. Like, you know, I don't need to be out of my tree on acid to understand what Purple Haze is, you know.
When people say that to me, Dave, I say, no, you need to listen to the music with headphones. That's what you need to do. You know, it's one thing to listen to it on your stereo system or on your CD, but, you know, if you go and listen to this music through your headphones, that's another dimension. So yeah,
Totally.
no, no, it's good to see that that you're on board, with at least offering an opinion about the creativity of these British blues cats, because it's important. They certainly took it seriously. I've read a few books and articles over the years, and it was almost evangelical for a lot of these guys. Keith Richards talks about how he wanted to get out there and get this music out to people. It was a reflection of something within himself. This primordial spirit that was happening in him. That was. And Clapton again says the same thing. Clearly Peter Green, when he heard BB King, obviously that's all they needed, was to hear the music.
Exactly. Yeah. Just those the way it's incredible. It's like, because Peter's got a lot in common with BB, but he's totally Peter Green. Like
Sure.
BB King could go, but Peter King can go, and it's totally different things altogether. It's totally separate entities altogether, and that's the point of it. It's so cool that you've got these two artists who respect each other totally, but they're not each other. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you've got your guitar plugged in, so that's great. So if I present you, would you like for the channel just to give us an example of your discovery of the Greeny scale for us? Just for anybody, there's a few guitar players here. There's R2, R3, Lockie Nutt, who's joining us, Sonia. We've got Pooh Ninja, who's jumped into the chat. Who else have I missed? Clive 54, who I said was in North America. He's actually an Englishman. And when I asked you the question about why British blues guys are so good, he said it's something to do with webbed feet. Something that you British guys apparently have. Who else have I missed in the chat? We've got Arvin. He's another good friend of ours. He's from Canada, saying g'day and hello. Appreciates your work
Thank you.
on your channel. He's a very, very keen British blues nut as well. And we've got JJ House of Jams. He's an Englishman. He's been in North America, in California and Orange County for about 20 years. But loves to support England during the World Cup. So yeah, that's great. So I'm going to present you, and if you don't mind, Dave, if you don't mind just giving us that's fantastic. So just hold on. Okay, so just off you go, Dave.
Yeah. Peter Green. It's all pentatonics. It's simple, but it's not simple, because it's the idea of making 3 notes count. So instead of just kind of like going through the motions and just kind of doing kind of generic kind of blues soloing, there's dynamic to Peter. So like he would do stuff like where you can get so you get quiet.
Yeah.
But then at a moment's notice, it would kind of go, and then back to quiet again, and it's just these amazing dynamic shifts, and all it is these simple scales that I like to call them the Greeny scales, because they're what he uses. He uses like 3 positions, and a lot of Peter's stuff he like G minor a lot, so he will play kind of, where are we, camera? So he'll play G minor position here, and then he'll play another position down here. Oops, a little bit. And then down here. And he has such a grasp of dynamic, Peter does, in his playing, where he can do these kind of runs where he'll do like this crazy pentatonic kind of run of the minor pentatonic scale, but some of it will be inaudible. But you'll hear notes where he'll kind of, and it's that thing of like he makes you hear what he wants you to hear, and the rest is there almost subliminally, but it's doing its job, kind of thing. And the whole idea of dynamic is so there. It's so there in his playing, and that's key, is that tension and release thing of bending up and then lowering the volume and just kind of being calm again. But he's an absolute genius with 3 notes here, which is such a Peter Green sound.
That's the good gravy. That's the good gravy, Dave.
That is indeed, yeah. And the way you can fit that into a 12 by like, and go to the 4.
Beautiful. Wow.
It's just, there's so much in that alone, in that, and again, that's all trying to channel those Peter things. And again, he can do kind of like the first 2 notes of the God Give Mind to Give Up Living solo. Just that is a masterclass of how to do a blues guitar solo, because it kind of ramps up in intensity, and then
so Dave, Peter's riding the volume a lot when he's playing, a little bit like Clapton when he's recording, the Beano album. These guys are actually fiddling with the volume when they're playing, aren't they? You can hear the dynamic changes remarkably. It's not been done post-production or anything like that. It's actually on the go.
It is indeed, yeah. I mean, you can hear Peter do it in notes. Like Peter will be like, if I can get the guitar in the right position to see. So Peter will be like, bend a note, and he'll release the bend as he lowers the volume, and then
Beautiful.
And it's just all that. It's just incredible. It's just there's so much feel in that, and it's a shame there's not more footage of Peter playing, because it would be so amazing to see him do God Good Mind to Give Up Living live, like, see it in like person, because unfortunately, unless you were there, you didn't see it. And but there's footage of him doing kind of like, World Keeps on Turning and Like It This Way and stuff like that, but and a little bit of Albatross, although you don't see him because the camera's focused on Danny. But it's just that kind of, it's just insanely perfect at playing, and that version of World Keeps on Turning, where he's and then he turns his volume and goes,
oh wow.
And he turns it down again. It's that idea of that like darkness and shade, and then the light, and then loud and quiet, and it's just like, you just stand in. I just stand in awe of it. It's just like, and to this day, I don't feel like I can do it good enough. Like I'm constantly pursuing kind of like, it's got to be better. It's got to be better. Because that dynamic change you could do, where things could be really quiet and then he just and then it goes back to quiet again. It's so hard to get that. He was the master at it, and I've never heard any other guitarist do that. And be able that good at it. Like, Eric wasn't that good at that. He wasn't as good at that. No, not even Jimi Hendrix was as good at Peter at the dynamic drops and falls. He was just, and it's so hard to do. And it's like, how is he doing it? How is he doing it? I've sat there and I've thought and I've pondered and I've tried for years and years and years, and it's just like I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he did it. To this day, I'm still kind of scratching my head, going, "How the blooming heck did he do that?" It's, you know, Worried Dream is such a great example of that as well. When he does Worried Dream, the dynamic shifts in that song. I don't get it. It's just like the volume jump and the intensity jump and hearing the reverb splash about as well in the reverb tank that Peter always had. It's just like, whew, okay, this is a bit heavy to kind of like, you know, to kind of deal with sometimes. But it's that it's just when he hits a note, it's just Peter Green, you know. And everything's always a minor as well, and especially in these minor blues. I'm obsessed with Peter Green's minor blues. You know, it just, you know, because there's just so much expression in it. Funnily enough, actually, I'm more obsessed with Peter Green's blues playing than I am Jimi Hendrix's or anybody else's. It's just when it comes down to play that blues playing, even above people like B.B. King, it's like, you know, Peter Green's playing resonates with me on a level that just wasn't there before him. And I say I've just got so much respect and gratitude towards him. And again, it really upsets me and it hurts me in a way that I'll never get to meet him and tell him that in person anymore. I can't say that, which really gets to me, to be honest with you, really quite badly. And when I heard he had passed away, I was like, I'll never be able to do that to him, because I had these kind of like visions of kind of like, you know, being able to meet him and play a blues for him and get him to sign this guitar, and obviously, you know, that can't happen now. And that was a kind of a big kind of kick in the face, really. It was kind of like, wow, that's it was just a bit strong, and I was like, I could have done without that, you know. Not, you know, in a selfish kind of way. I don't mean it in any kind of disrespectful way, but it was kind of like, you know, like from my perspective, I wanted to meet the man who was, and tell him in person. I mean, I would have loved to have known what his reaction would have been when I said all this to him. But he'd probably been like, "Well, I didn't do anything." But he was very,
very humble.
Yeah, very, exactly, yeah. And which is again one of the traits that I've always respected as well. Of kind of like, I would love to just kind of. I've always agreed with that way of kind of being like, you know, don't ever think, you know, stay grounded to where you are and always know where you came from, and don't ever think that, like, you know, oh, I'm the best there is. It's like you're not, and you know, the moment you think you're the best there is, the moment you don't learn. So, you know,
just hold that thought about staying grounded. There's a couple of comments in the chat that I'd like to just pass on to you after you're playing. So Simon Williams, who's my co-host with me, and we'll be doing our regular scheduled show later this evening, he's saying that he's hearing a connection to Gilmore's playing and what you were playing. And another guy, Great Vanzini, is saying, yep, that's an interesting observation. He's never thought of that. And there's a wonderful comment here from Tina saying, I call those notes Greeny's singularity notes, because you can feel every single note he plays. Phenomenal. So, you know, you definitely have the touch. Staying grounded and knowing where you're coming from, I think that's a very, very good point, because Mick Fleetwood does that. Mick Fleetwood, since he was in the band, right through the history of Fleetwood Mac, has made it quite clear that everyone that's come into that band has understood clearly where it came from, the role of Peter Green. And in fact, you know, he even went to efforts to have that tribute show for him in February. Can I ask you what you think about that? Because again, you know, music fans can be strange, can't they?
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of people that gave him a bit of grief about that, because, you know, why are you doing this? Peter Green is still alive, you know? And he turned around and said, well, this is why we should be doing it.
Exactly, yeah. mean, it's a lot nicer to pay tribute to somebody who's alive than somebody who isn't, because they can't see it. I mean, I'm super grateful that Peter was around to know that happened, and even though he wasn't there, well, as far as
Well,
I
he
know,
was asked.
he was asked. Yeah.
But he said, no, you guys go ahead and do it, and I'll catch up with you guys later.
Exactly. I mean, what a human being. I mean, seriously. I mean, I just can't get. I'll never be able to get over Peter Green, and his humbleness and the way he was is a template for any guitarist to be. I don't like big-headed guitarists who think they're this, that, and the other, or they think they're God's gift to the instrument, or this,
Sure.
that, and the other. I don't like that. It's like, and the thing is too is like, Peter Green. I know it's a bit of a cliche, and Rick Beato did a video on this recently about the whole kind of the David Gilmour issue, but Peter Green really could say more in a few notes than anybody ever has. You know what I mean? Jimi Hendrix could do that. Dave Gilmour could do that. Eric Clapton could do that. There's these certain guitarists, they can hit a note and it just smacks you.
Yep.
There's so many examples, like Peter Green with the first two notes of the God Good Man's Give Up Williams solo, Jimmy with the first solo with Machine Gun, that big long sustained note, Gary Moore with Prison Walkways note and stuff like that. And it's just like these kind of things, and they're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
No,
they're just trying to play, and they're just trying to make music and emote. And that to me has always been more important. Like I'm not when I pick up a guitar, I'm not interested in being super technically shreddy and trying to create my own technique and this, that, and the other. There's a million brilliant techniques out there already. You don't have to look at Peter and Jimi Hendrix for that. And that's all that matters. Is like, it's not about what you can do with a piece of wood. It's about how you connect with people. And I always feel when you play a song, people shouldn't be listening to it. They should be part of it. They go with you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a little ride that you all go on. You're not separate to them and they're not separate to you. And Peter could do that. He could always take you with him. And I think that's really important. And I don't really like the idea of kind of guitarists who are just kind of like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me with 8-finger tapping, or like, look at my technique and how amazing it is. Brilliant. But you're not reaching out, and you're not taking me emotionally on any kind of ride. And I don't feel what you're trying to do. Whereas if you listen to Peter play, or Jimmy play, or Eric play, or any of these great guitar players, they're great guitar players because they could just grab you and take you on a ride and make you feel better for it, instead of kind of making you feel either belittled or kind of bored or whatever, it may be. It's really important, that connection that these guitarists had.
Okay. Well, Dave, I'm just looking that we've gone an hour and a half, and I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
Before we sign off, will you come back?
I would love to. Yeah, I'd absolutely love to. It'd be great. Amazing.
Well, yeah, I'd love to do part 2, because I don't think we've and like I said to you at the top of the show, I could talk about Peter Green and British blues for hours. In fact, that's why we do this show. So what I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is get you on with my other co-host, Simon Williams. So I'll have a chat with him this evening, and if you're available in another 4 weeks' time or something like that, to jump on and continue the chat, I'd be personally grateful if you could, because there's a couple of questions that I still haven't asked you, and I'd be keen to get your answers.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great. That'd be really cool.
Awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. So before I get you to say your goodbye, I just want to say thanks to everyone in the chat, if that's okay, Dave. So Arvin, thank you. Gussie Wells, thanks for joining us. Hamilton David, Deja Voodoo, JJ's House of Jams, Clive 54, Tina, Great Vanzini, my co-host Simon, Sonia, Pooh Ninja, Arvin, R2, R3, Locking Nut. Who else have I missed? I think that's about everybody. If I've missed anyone, please forgive me. If you like anything that Dave and I have said and you think that it's interesting, feel free, please, to share this episode. Please subscribe if you haven't to Dave's channel. He's awesome. I can't recommend Dave's channel more than enough. And yeah, we'll look forward to having Dave back in about 4 weeks' time.
That'd be wicked. Awesome. Thank you very much indeed.
So is there anything that you'd like to say in closing about Peter Green that you haven't already said, Dave?
Not really. No, I just want people to know who he is. he deserves to be up there with people like Eric Clapton and Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix, because there'll never be another Peter Green, and to me he was and always will be the best British blues player. He's everything I strive to be as a blues guitarist as well. That's, if I could ever do one thing half as good as Peter, then I'll be a happy man.
Oh, well, yeah, like I said to you at the top of the show, you certainly have been inspirational for me in my guitar playing. And, that's one of the great things, the positive things about social media, and as musicians we have, in the olden days, we didn't have this. So, we'd go and knock on Dave Simpson's door and say, come out and show me how to play this Greeny scale, and that, now we can do that through, YouTube. So that's one of the great things. And your presence on YouTube makes it a better place. So keep up the hard work. I look forward to getting some reports on your tribute band. I think there's certainly a venue, but more than that, I think people want to listen to that kind of music, Dave. I think there's space there for it. Everything goes in cycles and circles, and we want to hear that space between the notes now.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree.
Okay, keep safe, everybody. Thank you for watching Dave and I. Tune in later on when Simon and I are on. Simon's going to talk about a book and his record in his top 5 British blues, and we will have a special guest. Great. Kubrick Lover will be on the show with us. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.